Tio Blaze.
Hey there, this is Tio bringing another Kerbal Space Program video. In today's video, I'm going to show you a little rescue mission that I ran to get a Kerbal off the surface of the Mun. So, in a previous video, I built a surface station on the Mun using EVA construction. I actually recorded the video quite a long time ago, but only just now recently posted it. But anyway, I had two engineers on the surface constructing that station, and then one of the vehicles that I'd sent with all the parts, I had a means to get him back to Kerbin, but I was so frustrated and the build itself didn't go as planned, so I ended up recovering the vehicle and forgot to send the Kerbal back. But anyway, because I'm just now tinkering with sandbox mode, I realized I actually need to go recover that guy in order to use him in future missions, and just to have fewer things in the in the I forget what you call the building, but where you can go and see things in orbit. I don't like having a cluster of things. So an extra Kerbonaut just on the surface of a moon of the Mun in this case is inconvenient. So let's go ahead and get him off the surface. And because I've got a second engineer on station, I decided to go with this twin vehicle design, which is probably the main reason I even chose to record this video. So this is going to be an Apollo style, where I've got like a mothership in the orbit of the Mun. There you see I had transferred some fuel thinking I would need it to circularize, but ended up not needing it. So that mothership will stay in orbit. Then it's got two separate return vehicles that I can get all the way back to Kerbin with heat shields and parachutes and whatnot. And this is a two-stage lander like the Apollo landers. The bottom stage is just going to get you to the surface, and the upper stage will detach and put the payload, in this case, one Kerbal each vehicle, into orbit. So I don't have a relay network around the Mun, and I don't have pilots nearby with a local control ability. So this little probe, this lander, lost control here during the mission because Kerbin's not in line of sight apparently. So the only thing I can do, thankfully, it'll still point retrograde for me. I can't manually control it, but it'll automatically control. I can also throttle up 100%, which is what I do off and on, just to slow my descent and touchdown. So I've got two options to get this lander closer to the surface station. One option is to, as you just saw, I tried to time warp so that I would wait until Kerbin's in line of sight. But then I decided, no, let me try to use my engineer that I'm coming here to rescue. Let's put him in the return vehicle, use the rest of the fuel on that first stage, and get it a little closer. But as you can see up in the top corner, his monopropellant, for whatever reason, was incredibly low. And I've noticed that with a few other Kerbals that I've used recently. I don't know if it's a glitch or a quirk, but he completely ran out of monopropellant trying to get to the lander, which actually is a problem because I don't have any ladders on the lander. So you'll see in a second how much of a problem that'll be for me. But anyway, I've got line of sight with Kerbin now. I waited a few hours, and I'm gonna go ahead and just put the lander right next to my engineer. Hopefully, I need to get as close as possible because he doesn't have monopropellant and he can't really fly to the lander. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the lander hopefully right next to him, and that's pretty close. That'll work. Again, don't have a ladder, so I'm gonna uh, experiment with jumping. But when you jump straight up, you can't move forward or backwards, obviously. So I have to kind of walk forward, and right as I step, I jump, and it pushes me forward a bit. Uh, Jumping on top of the lander does no good, so I basically have to hit the door. And then I realized as I was experimenting with all this, the if you put the Kerbal, or at least his EVA pack, in a command module, which I guess this second stage, these Mooner lander components technically are, it refuels the pack. So the Kerbal didn't go into the lander, but I put his EVA pack in and it refilled it. But anyway, just ran out of fuel completely on the bottom stage. Thankfully, it didn't explode. It really probably could have. It should have, because it landed pretty hard. But that's as close as I can get to the station now, because I'm completely out of fuel on the bottom stage. And I'm going to go ahead and send my engineer up into orbit. So I really don't like the design of this component. They added it in one of the expansions. This is the only function that I can think of, is to get Kerbals off the surface of the Mun. The problem with this little component, that the Mooner excursion module, it's designed with the right amount of fuel, the right amount of monopropellant to get to orbit. If you add any components to it at all, it'll throw off the center of mass. So that one little antenna threw off the center of mass just a hair. And if you're watching the video, one of the thrusters was pretty much always trying to push to compensate for that slight offset of the center of mass from the center of thrust. But anyway, it functioned. I've got plenty of fuel getting to orbit, plenty of monopropellant to keep myself nice and centered. In future missions, if I ever use this part again, you really just have to use it with a pilot. That's the intent. Like in the Apollo missions, they had a pilot. So got to put a pilot in it and take the antenna off. The only part you can add to that I believe is the docking port on top. You have to add a docking port, obviously, for it to dock with something. And I guess the reason they didn't put a docking port is to give you the option to put the small or the medium. But I find if you put any other parts on those lunar excursion modules, they don't function well and they suck. But worked pretty well in this case. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I recorded it. So here you see the mothership. It's basically a one-seated command module with a heat shield, a decoupler, some fuel, an engine, and a single solar panel to get us back to Kerbin. I decided to minimize space debris. I had plenty of fuel. I left the lunar excursion module attached to the service module so that I can deorbit it at Kerbin, and it'll burn up in the atmosphere. So I'm going home with everything. I transferred my Kerbal into the service module, and I've got my heat shield and parachutes. Now you see me blazing on in. That's it for the video. It's just a fun, interesting rescue scenario. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do that. Leave me a comment if you want to interact. I love answering comments. Appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you next time.